Michael Cimino was an American filmmaker. He died, I think, in 2007. He was a man that directed The Deer Hunter in 1978, and that won 5 Academy Awards, including the Best Picture and the Best Director. And I watched Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, just the start of it, a few days ago. I watched it to the midpoint. It's a 2-hour film. It was out in 1974. And the reason I watched Thunderbolt and Lightfoot was because when I was 16 years old, I went to see Thunderbolt and Lightfoot in the cinema in Glasgow. And I went there with my mate Brian. I had 2 mates called Brian. One guy from Pollock, another guy from Queen's Park. And Michael Cimino achieved some quite spectacular things. One was the Academy Award and the winning of, for The Deer Hunter, the Best Director. He also directed the early Magnum Force, Clint Eastwood kind of films, that type of stuff. And he also directed a film which was out in 1980, which I think it was called Heaven's Gate. It was a western. It was starring Chris Christopherson. And it cost, I think, about £50 million to make. And it was a 100% disaster. It lost more money than any other film in history. It just was a huge turkey. So, quite a contrast between The Deer Hunter and Heaven's Gate. And so I watched Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, made in 1974, directed by Michael Cimino, just to see if it was anything like what I remembered it to be when I was 16. My mate at the time was a guy called Brian, and he did Kung Fu, which was all the rage in the mid-70s, and he took it very seriously, and he went to classes and was running up the belt's colours to try and get towards his black belt. And we went to see Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, and we went with 2 other guys. And it was a kind of laddish, in a sense, it's a kind of laddish type of film. And it was Clint Eastwood who was trying to break out of the mould a bit of his more serious Magnum Force type of thing, Dirty Harry. So in Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, it's a robbery, bank robbery type of film. It's a bit like a road movie, and it stars Jeff Bridges. And so Jeff Bridges and Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood's Thunderbolt, Jeff Bridges is Lightfoot, and they team up to rob a bank. And it's a bit of a light comedy, and there's another guy, the villain in it, called George Kennedy, who was the actor, and he's called the Red in it. So I watched it for an hour to the midpoint. That's quite a long time for me to be able to stick with a film, and it was pretty good. And there was a camaraderie between Eastwood and Bridges and the two characters in the movie as well. But I noticed what kept me sticking with the film for an hour was it started off with good cinematography. I thought the direction and the attention to detail in the way the shots were all lined up were pretty good, and I never noticed it at the time when I was a kid or a teenager. I hadn't seen any of this sort of stuff because I wasn't paying attention to it. But when I started to play it on my computer, it was widescreen, and I liked the format, shape, and then I was pretty impressed by the way the shots were set up. As being a photographer, I was looking at it in a different way, and so that I still, my mind started to wander a bit, and I gave up after half an hour. But I think it's quite a fun film to watch. It's much more gentler touch, but I don't think the film knew what it was. I don't think it knew whether it was a road movie, because there were lots of car scenes in it, or whether it was a almost like a western, or was it a crime bank heist type of movie. So I don't think it knew what it was. But at the start of it, there's a scene in a church, and everyone's waving fans at their faces at the congregation, and there's a preacher who happens to be Clint Eastwood in disguise, and it seems very warm. I mean, it seems very hot in terms of as people are waving fans in the church, and there seems to be a very direct burning sunshine, and people are speaking in a way. They're saying, "Hey, you boy," and "Do you want to buy this car, boy? Are you man enough?" And I thought it was actually set in the southern states, but it turned out it was filmed a location in Montana. And I thought, Montana? I thought that's almost in Canada. So I was wondering why it was so warm in the scenes, because I just thought, well, it must be one of the southern states in the way, the manner of the people. But the location of the film Thunderbolt and Lightfoot was way up north, almost on the Canadian border. So I think it's a fun film, very popular with people.